Alright, I'm ready.
I think we're still waiting on a couple to get in. So I haven't talked with you guys in a while. How are you guys finding this patch?
We've not really changed much, but I think we've started running Reaper slightly more, I guess.
Okay.
And because Brigitte is not in open division, we just haven't touched her. We've just
Right, yeah.
disabled her in scrims.
Makes sense.
The other changes, I forgot.
May.
Oh
May
yeah,
OP.
we haven't changed. We haven't even run May, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. It's
No,
generally
it's just a small quality of life change. It's not a big thing for her.
yeah. Reaper's the main one.
I'm
Yeah,
in
for
now.
sure. All right. Are we waiting on anything else? We got 4 in here.
Me, Joker,
Is-
3 and 4. Yeah.
Is Lumi coming?
He's AFK, I think.
Yeah.
Alright.
Lumi said he'd be there for VOD review, but I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
He'll if he joins later on, that's fine. Like, I'll have it
I'm
recorded
recording
anyway.
so
Yeah.
Okay. So just getting into this, you guys are running a pretty standard Ryan comp here. I will say
I-
this actually. Go ahead.
I can't see the thing.
I
Oh,
think it's doing the
yeah.
glitchy thing.
I'm just reload. Hope that fixes it.
all right. Yeah, I just want to talk about.
Okay. No.
So, Rhine comp isn't actually, from what I've seen, that standard on Dorado anymore. So, how do you guys? What's your game plan going into this? I'm assuming it's something similar to like fight around choke, pocket the McCree.
We took high ground, then we dropped a choke as soon as we can. If we
Right.
see they have like Widow or anyone that we can't deal with.
So-
But yeah, I can't see the thing for some reason.
Even if it's like it's playing now, nothing changes.
Nope. Right now I'm on a the custom game screen. Okay, there we go. Now I'm
Okay.
seeing
Yeah, it's fine for me too.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine.
All right. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about this comp because Dorado is a really interesting first point, and it's in the past been a really hard first point to capture, but in recent times it's been, I guess, theorycraft a lot, and a lot of teams are running more interesting dives to attack and capture it. So before we even get into this, so obviously the standard stuff was just like hold the shield up here, get your poke in, and then falling back to the choke down here, and then taking a brawl down here. But with the surge of Widow Mercy in this current meta, it's becoming less and less viable to leave a Widow uncontested on this point. So your guys' comp basically leaves a Widow uncontested, but for the enemy team. Does the enemy run a Widow?
Uh,
Eventually,
That's-
yes.
At the
Okay.
start, if I remember, I might just have bad memory. They ran Farah, went over the up top to the right of where Diva is right now. Went over
Right.
that roof and just blew us all off.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And
Fall back. But we
Yeah, so yeah, Pharah and Widow are like the two common pocket DPS. So what I've seen, so obviously you guys know this meta is very, very dive centric heavy. Just like the past like 3 seasons, but there's some new stuff coming out that's sort of more interesting, and a lot of that comes between either Sombra comps, which are more interesting this season, and pocket comps. When what I mean by that is either a pocket like Widow, a pocket McCree, a pocket Pharah, where you run Mercy in your standard comp instead of like a Lucio, so you'd run like Zen Mercy, and it creates these harder timings to capitalize on, but it snowballs a lot harder. So what I mean by that is, for example, when they have a Pharah, Pharah's positioning needs to be constantly oppressed, otherwise she's going to find windows to engage on you, and if you don't have anything that directly can deal with that, i.e. like a Widow on your side or a Pharah on your side to duel her or something like that, like you have a McCree, sure, but he's not going to be able to solo take her out when she's going for this aggressive playstyle. Same thing goes for if the enemy were running a Widow on this point. For example, if the Widow is like standing up here or up here or rotates all the way around behind and they find a window where Widow has free sight lines, it's a really, really hard thing to deal with. So just in general, on this point, what most teams are running, just to give you guys an idea, is either a dive defense with Genji Tracer or Tracer Widow, or this sort of split comp where teams are running Orisa Diva to play the choke by themselves, and then Widow Mercy, and then usually Zen Tracer, but that those two spots are flexible, where you can run even like a Genji. Some teams run Pharah, Widow, like so this crazy flexible defense comp where you can sort of answer multiple threats at the same time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I see a little bit of weakness just in the comp by having a Reinhardt, because Reinhardt's obviously very unable to self-sustain, and he's unable to rotate very quickly. He's great at holding choke points, but in this current meta, it's not really the choke point that's contested anymore. It's more about the long sight lines on Dorado, and it's about these isolated threats that are Pharah and their Widow. So I'd like to see, I guess, more thinking going into countering that, specifically on maps like Dorado. Other maps that this applies are stuff like, I don't know, like a Watchpoint Gibraltar where Widow's really strong. Anything with like these long sight lines where teams can play split basically for free is something we need to worry about a little bit. But let's just go into the map and see what happens.
What's hot?
Skip ahead a little.
He's not no Junkrat.
Hey, let's focus.
And Norway's the cold country.
Fire top right. No boop. Back up the
So,
choke.
yeah.
Back up the choke.
Okay, so nothing really bad happens. That's fine.
Shield bomb.
The biggest thing I want to see here is making sure we know where the Pharah is at all times.
Still focusing on me.
Diva off to the side. Right. At the right.
No hook.
Upping heals.
Sending orb. They're down one.
All right, so
Careful,
they're
Lomi,
running
careful.
a Rhine comp with the Pharah Rhine Hog.
Half heals.
So this actually looks kind of weak to me because there's nothing to capitalize on Pharah's damage. So yeah, your comp should counter this for sure just by holding the choke,
7
because they
heals,
can't.
nice.
Rhine just can't walk up on you for free.
Nice guys.
You have a Genji?
I'd be surprised if they don't switch to a dive comp here.
Top left, so if he goes over, I'll fall
They
out.
basically just ran Ryan the entire time, and I think like us trying to go after that, like running dive into that, for some reason, like
Diva in the middle.
we had a lot of trouble doing that.
I'm dropping shield.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at it.
Oh shit. Sending orb your way, Prince.
Upping heals on you.
Shit, we're down.
One thing you guys could try, in addition to this comp, is so how do you feel about the Moira Lucio support combo?
We
Like, does it?
We
Go
just did it just then.
Yeah.
generally the only reason we run it is when we know they're gonna. Well, when we think they're gonna have dive, just because it's really hard to dive either Moira or Thing.
Okay. So yeah, it's really good for support survivability for sure. What I will say is I don't think it's the strongest for both offensive options, obviously, because you don't really have many offensive options with either character, and it's not really good for. It's not the best sustain comp either, even though Moira puts out a lot of healing. Moira Lucio is typically only seen in like a really aggressive dive comp where you use Moira to pocket the tanks. So Moira's burst healing is something that's really strong on tanks, but there are options that teams can use to deal with it, like i.e. by either isolating the supports out or the tanks out with whatever means they have. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'd rather see a Zen in this comp, either for the Lucio or even running Mercy instead of Moira here. Typically, you run Lucio to peel for like your other support, right? He shouldn't need to be like a self-peeling character. So like if you're running Moira, who doesn't need a lot of peel herself, I don't think you absolutely need a Lucio. Or so the other thing is like if you run a Zen, you might need a Lucio for the Zen. If you run a Mercy, you might need a Lucio for the Mercy. But for Lucio Moira, I don't think Lucio works the best in this comp. The reason I say Zen over Lucio too is just for also having the defensive option with the ults. But this is something that's going to come down to preference for your guys' comp. What works for you guys? If you guys feel like you're getting a lot of value out of the Lucio with speed rotations, with heal timings, with boops, whatever it is, then yeah, keep running it, whatever works for you guys. But just on paper, I think you guys could optimize this comp a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
Powering.
Fire above.
I've shot there.
3 behind us.
So this is kind of like what I'm talking about with this isolated threat that is Pharah, where if she goes unanswered,
Get Mercy, Mercy's rising.
she can create a lot of openings.
I'm focusing out.
But we get a good junk tire off.
Mercy one.
Sending orb.
Yeah, their comp is really awkward, isn't it? But she gets a barrage off. I guess here, let's rewind a quick second. I guess the biggest problem here is Farah gets rezzed. So I guess this is where's our McCree at this point?
I died.
He died.
I died pretty
Okay,
early.
yeah,
I got
that's
picked
yeah,
early.
fair.
We lost both DPSs. Huh?
So there's a couple answers to this push you guys could try.
I've shot there.
So our first thing is obviously we should be tighter together with this comp. We should be having our McCree behind the Rhine shield. He should be with the Moira Lucio most of the time, I would say. I guess you were looking for aggressive poke on Farah's peeking, but they have a Mercy pocket, so it's not something you're going to win like a 1v1 in, right? Unless you get some like really sick shots off. So I'd just like to see a little bit tighter positioning here from our team. Having the Kree with the Rhine also gives you stuff like being ready for D.Va peels. You're ready to deal with their Rhine if he charges or something, or you can flash and combo with your Rhine. And it's just a safer alternative anyway. There's not much you're doing other than finding poke by being further up. So it's just a better team play to play more with the team here. This is sort of like the idea behind having a Mercy too, because you could have the Mercy just pocketing the McCree like full time whenever she doesn't need to be healing, and McCree can just pop off behind shield. So that's the
Three
first
behind
thing.
us, three behind us.
So at this point, we need to recognize how big of a threat Farah is. The Junkrat tire, I think, is a good call since we're getting pressured hard. I'd like to see, I guess, a quicker reaction to protecting the Junkrat. So when did we start channeling the tire? I didn't hear it.
I think it was as soon as we dropped Prince, I went inside.
Okay.
Yes, like now.
Fire above, fire above.
Yeah.
I've shot there.
I guess if you can communicate that, that you're looking for tire and you know you're in a somewhat exploitable position, because you're not like I'd say like if you were a little bit further back or even like somewhere where you know they don't have access to, but since they control this ground, they can access apartments really, really easily. Just communicating that you're in here, you might need peeling, you might need healing. Again, it's not something that's completely foreseeable because you didn't know the D.Va was coming for you, but always communicating when and where you're ulting can be helpful to your team. Because like I said, I didn't notice even from the VOD that the ult was coming in through, so maybe your team didn't even know this was about to happen, and then D.Va just arrives a little bit too late to matrix you and stuff like that.
I think I called like a second, like if you go like a second back, I think I could call tiring.
Okay. Maybe I just didn't hear it.
Shit, we're down one.
Tiring.
Fire above, fire above.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Three behind us, three
Like
behind us.
muffled though.
Go to toilet.
Yeah, and the peel was there, it just came like a half second too late. So yeah, the other thing obviously is because of this split focus we had between people looking up the Farah Mercy, people trying to peel for the Junkrat, the Mercy gets the res off, which, I mean, obviously it's unlucky more than anything just because our focus was a bit split, but we need to have someone, I guess, prioritizing our focus in these fights. We need to have someone directing where we want to look, because right now we're just looking at whatever comes up. We're looking at the Farah when she's flying above us, we're looking at the Junkrat on our side when he's tiring, we're looking at the Rhine on our front side. So we need to figure out where we want to fight and who we want to fight faster. We need to figure out, obviously, I think Farah is our primary threat, so Farah should be dealt with immediately, which she was with a tire, which was good. But there should be more focus, I guess, from the team, not just from individuals, on these priority picks, on these priority targets. So an example of what I like to hear, so say our McCree goes down, we call immediately, okay, Farah's got free space. If we see her flying up, we should be backing up. Our Rhine should be backing up. He doesn't need to contest their Rhine as much because he's not a threat at this point. It's really just the Farah we need to deal with. D.Va can look to stuff the Farah in the air, stuff like that. If we do get this Junkrat tire off on the Farah, we should for sure be camping her body because we know Farah Mercy. We know the Mercy was Valking, I believe. So that's something we should definitely be walking out for. But because it was so hectic and stuff just kept popping up, our focus was too thinly stretched, I guess, and we don't end up capitalizing on this,
I'm
which is
focusing.
fine. It happens, but it's just a little bit more discipline, I guess.
Sending orb.
I have my ultimate ready.
And yeah, the barrage just cleans us up.
Okay, it's not worth it for me. Maybe is it?
I'm dying. flying. They have that point.
Get back, give it up. Lumi go. No, Lumi. Yeah, Lumi go Winston.
I'll go taxi people.
I'll have to go back to spawn.
So yeah, I guess a comp that would help, or a couple things that we could change in our comp to maybe help. First of all, I would say switch to Winston, especially after first point. I don't know if you do already, but
I just called it.
okay. The other thing, having a Zen and having, for example, if we had Mercy Zen instead of Moira Lucia, we would still have a defensive option with Transcendence. We would have a lot more pressure on Pharah by having Pocket and McCree. He could literally one-shot, headshot Pharah if she's discorded. And it's comparable healing, and it's a lot more utility. So this comp is good for keeping the supports alive. They're never under threat, but it's not good for enabling the rest of our team. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So that's my biggest caveat for first point here.
Should I go Mercy?
Yeah.
Okay, so we swapped to Mercy here.
Wipe the screen. And I'm gonna go on to.
Oh, sorry.
Next slide.
Were we close to beat?
Oh no.
Well, we beat it that last fight
Oh,
It was
just before
6%.
the barrage came out.
Here.
All right, so we're back on the dive comp.
5 health. I need heals badly.
Do you switch off McCree here?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
a
he-
Tracer.
What
Okay,
was
okay.
gonna end up happening is I was gonna go into thing Widow, but the spawn swapped.
Oh, okay.
And plus with the
So
high
yeah.
ground here, Tracer can kind of contest the Widow.
So yeah, a Widow Tracer is a really strong comp here. The sight lines are obviously really huge, and dealing with a Pharah can be solo done by a Widow if the shots are good. But even if you don't hit shots, like just controlling sight lines really shuts down a Pharah. But we've got hard dive now. We got full dive with Mercy Pocket, so we can keep our tanks survive, or we can keep our tanks alive during the dive. So what I'd like to see here is capitalizing on the fact that they don't have a full dive. I think they're still on Reinhardt. I doubt he would have switched in time at this point during the fight. So they don't have great mobility. They have Diva, sure, for Peel, but we should have more opportunities to find engages than they do. So as long as we're not eating too many Pharah rockets, we should always find a favorable engage here.
I'm going on Genji. Jump down.
Of course, they do still have Blade, so that's something we do have to watch out for.
Drop down to Genji.
Okay, I'm with you, Diva.
Genji can die. Genji.
Ryan low,
Genji's
Ryan
actually
low.
one.
All right, let's rewind just a quick second. So we dropped down a little bit split here.
Fight pressure.
So the biggest thing I'm seeing right now is it looks to me like our Winston already has a target in mind from even this far back,
Pressure far.
Contest.
and we're looking to contest the point. Obviously, we don't want them to push too far because if they push too far, they're just going to win off one fight. And actually, it might be past that point already.
Go on Genji.
So the cart is right here. I don't know if I've talked to you guys about this before. I think I have. Where you want to think about the amount of fights you can get on a point. And most points on payload and hybrid maps, you want to think about getting at least 2 fights per area of the map. Like even if you lose these fights like completely, you want to be able to get those 2 fights off just so you can fight for ult economy, you can fight for time and waste time on the payload, stuff like that. So when the cart is this far and it's almost under this bridge here, that is too far to take 2 fights basically. So now we realize it's this next fight, and then we're gonna stagger in for like half a fight maybe, and maybe we'll get lucky and find a pick coming in, but it's not gonna be like a full setup fight, right? Dorado is definitely one of those maps where the timings are very, very specific, and on this map, it's basically when it gets past the church doors that's underneath here, like past these pillars and stuff, that's when it's too late to take 2 fights. So what I'd like to see is either, since we have DIVCOM, since we were here and set up relatively fast, we were up here for maybe 5-6 seconds, and we didn't contest until
Jump down.
it's just coming up now.
Pressure far.
I need to contest.
So what I'm trying to say here is we don't need to rush our contest here, since we know we're only going to get 1 fight in on second point here. We're only going to get 1 good fight in. So I guess what we should be trying to do is try and set up the best fight possible for the time we have. So obviously we don't want to get snowballed. We feel like they're pushing the card for free, and we want to take a fight, but we still need to be patient and make sure we're taking our time to set up the fight. So the biggest thing I want to see is I want to see our Tracer or Genji do more calling on where they want to engage, because it's really dependent on them. The tank cooldowns can be used to get anywhere on the map. We have Lucio and Mercy, who don't need to be peeled for ideally. They can peel for themselves or they can fly away. And we can focus on finding our target, potentially speeding in and engaging together. So that's really mostly on the DPS cooldowns and their ability to get on a target. So Prince, either from you on high ground, if you see someone who's isolated, or I'm not sure where Genji is at this very second. I think you were on high ground not moments ago.
I think I went to contest point
Okay.
with Lucy.
Okay. So yeah, we're up here poking. We're looking for an engage. It's really up to, at this point in the game, at this point coming up to this fight, it's up to the DPS to figure out where they want to be. And that comes down to where you want to fight and where you want to fight from. So say the cart is going to be under bridge by the time we're fighting, because that's what is about to happen. We want to be able to take angles behind them, most likely. We can use bank to our advantage, and we can use that mega pack to our advantage. We can use these split crossfires to our advantage. We can use a high ground to our advantage, obviously. I mean, it's a bit hard against a Pharah, but there are a lot of angles we can take here. We need to make sure we're setting up and fighting where we want to fight. We have the faster comp here. We can fight wherever we want to fight. As long as we're on the same page together and we engage at the same time, we should be able to take any fight we want to take. The only thing that could potentially stop us from doing this is like ults that come out from their side, but they just use Valk, they just use Shatter. Those are their biggest. Who's their other support? I think they had a Moira.
It was Moira Lucio.
No, they're
I'm not
going.
sure.
They're
Moira-
going more Mercy.
I don't get.
Yeah, it was Moira Mercy. So
Don't get
they
worried.
don't have a lot of defensive options really. They have maybe Diva Bomb coming up. They have Blade, which is a really bad defensive option, a really good offensive option. So as long as we're quick here and we don't stagnate a little bit too long, which I don't think we did. I'm just saying, as long as we're quick about our decision making and we get in position quickly enough, we can take a fight here that's to our advantage. So that's what I'd like to see a little bit more of. And then as soon as it doesn't also, like when I said the DPS to find a target, it's not necessarily like on you guys as individuals, but like anyone can find a target. It's up to you to be in position for that target, was what I'm trying to say. So I guess I don't think you should be up here as necessarily as Tracer. I think Genji's fine up here because he can look for poke. I'd like to see you scouting at the ground more, either taking control of bank, so we have that to our advantage, or going all the way around, or finding angles from this sort of like courtyard area. Finding space as an individual as Tracer is really important, and understanding the play field for when the fight's going to unfold is important for your team. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see how this drop down works out.
Jungle on the Genji. Jump down. Fight pressure far.
I reach contest.
Drop down to Genji.
Okay, I'm with you, Diva.
So yeah, our Genji,
Calm down.
Diva, Lucio kind of fall behind. We get
Mercy,
their Diva, their Genji,
Using Lucio.
Winston.
Mercy one.
Up one, up one, up one. They got the res off. They got the res off. They're bombing. I'm dead.
I'm dead.
I think our biggest problem here is we got
You lost
Split.
that. I have.
and our ults came out a little bit too slow. If we're looking for this engage on cart and we're split like this, we could almost engage with a Diva Bomb to split their focus up.
I'm not sure if Violet's AFK or not, but we still need her in here because she's the one who's recording. I'm just gonna leave her.
Okay.
I'm also recording it too.
Okay.
Oh wait, did it kick me out?
Yeah, because you went AFK for like a second.
Unlucky.
I just
I-
didn't talk. Did the thing go as AFK or something?
Yeah, because it goes
Oh.
on voice, so I just dragged you back in.
Well,
Don't worry.
So let's just look at this drop one more time.
Genji.
So right now, we're split and everyone is looking in this direction from the enemy team. So I'm surprised actually Mercy lives this, because in my head their focus should all be on you right now. You've got no one to fly to on high ground. If you want to fly to someone, you have to go literally through them, and you're with D.Va, which is good, but you're very, very exposed right now. So they do end up getting the Lucio with the Coalescence, I guess.
It might have been like
Not this Pharaoh rocket. I don't. Where's the Coalescence? Okay. Anyway.
There you go.
Might have been like her putting it back just then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beans right there.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there it is.
So we lose Lucio early, but they split their focus again because we're on either side of them and because our tanks are on their backline, which is good. So we get this res off. I think as soon as they shift focus away from here, I'd like to see D.Va bomb going forward. So I like that you're pocketing your Mercy. You have Matrix ready in case they go in here. But as soon as you see them shift their focus, either you need to be with them, and I think, or maybe your boosters are down. Actually, your booster just came down from flying when we dropped, so maybe the timing's not great. But I'd like to see. So this is sort of like D.Va's role in this comp. You need to be everywhere. You need to be on your backline when they need peel, and you need to be with your front line when they're going hard. So you were with your backline when we were pressured, which is good. But as soon as their focus shifts, you need to be following them.
Mercy, mercy.
So we get the res off,
Nice race.
Raising Lucio.
and then the bomb comes through.
Up one, up one, up one. They got the res off. They got the res off. They're bombing. I'm dead.
So I think the biggest thing is as soon as they bombed, we got completely split. But our bomb didn't find a lot of value because they had Rhine shield still. So either our fight needs to happen faster, or we need to be rotating more around where we want to be. Because right now, I don't think under bridge is where we want to be with our supports and with our tank line. So either we need to be following targets where they go. I'm not sure. So their tanks are here. Are we fighting someone in courtyard at this moment? It looks like we are.
Raising Lucio.
I was going up to the Mercy, and then we got
Okay.
back.
To one.
Up one, up one, up one. They got the res off. They got the res off. They're bombing. I'm dead.
I think I'd like to see more pressure on their Mercy for sure. This is twice now she's gotten res off, like as the fight's still unfolding. So I noticed you're on high ground here, Prince. Are you like pressuring the Pharah here?
That was the original idea, really, and then I think I just went back to high ground just to recall, because
Okay.
and then I just dropped back down.
So yeah, the biggest thing I want to see is coordinated target focus from our tanks and from our DPS. Our supports, like I said, are somewhat self-sufficient. As we just saw, like Lucio got blown up, but their focus got turned away from our Mercy, so we got the res off. And Lucio Mercy is like a very survivable duo. Unless literally like the entire enemy team is on them, they should live most dives. So we can send our other 4 members to hard focus whoever we deem is the appropriate target at this point. So obviously, Mercy with a Pharah is a hard target to focus, but if we see her with the team here and we see her especially going for a res, we need to be calling immediately where Mercy is and how we're getting on her. If it's not a viable option, like if we don't have any cooldowns up or no one's nearby, that's fine. But I really think we could have focused on that Mercy here. Obviously, our tanks are falling low, so they jump out. But I think that call needs to happen sooner anyway.
Nice race.
Raising Lucio.
Mercy one.
Up
Okay,
one,
so
up
the
one, up one.
Mercy's call for
They
1.
got the res
but-
off. They got the res off. They're bombing.
So yeah, I'd like to see just like 2 seconds earlier that call for the Mercy.
Yo.
Mercy one.
Up one, up one, up one. They got the res off. They got the res off. They're bombing. I'm dead.
But yeah, then it just falls apart with them blowing ults.
You lost that. I have Valk.
So yeah, basically against this comp, we have to, as much as it sucks, ignore the Pharah because we don't have a lot to deal with it. If we absolutely need to deal with the Pharah, like she's in our face, we send D.Va alone basically, because there's no one else who can really contest Pharah. We can, like you said, Prince, you can sort of contest her on high ground as Tracer, but I don't think that's a valuable use of your time.
Mhm.
If we feel Pharah is especially oppressive on this map, you guys can look into running that Widow Tracer comp we talked about. You can look into running. You honestly could keep the McCree or run a soldier instead. in this point, and just again pocket with the Mercy is a really really strong option right now.
What teams generally been doing? Right now on our team, the best player for Widow is our Mercy because she practices a lot. I'm starting to learn it. But at this when this match was going on, I wasn't like doing well on Widow because on the first map we ran me on Widow Brins, and I wasn't doing much, so I knew my aim was off them. So that's why we didn't run it here. I think I did go on to it for the last point though, because it was close quarters.
I will say the biggest thing to running Widow is you need to be confident. So for whatever reason, I know this is an open division match, right? Like this is game time. This is performance mode. So I understand not wanting to pull it out, but what I'd like to see from you now to improve on that is when you're running scrims, never be doubting yourself on Widow. If it's truly the case that you literally can't hit a single shot or whatever, then yeah, maybe say, okay, I'm not finding value, but don't ever lose confidence on Widow, because then you can't run Widow into anything. You can't run Widow into Widow. You can't run Widow into Pharah. It's just like, if you're not confident, you can't even have it as an option. So what I'd like to hear from you going forward is, even if you're not hitting shots, even if you're not on your A game all the time, always look for the amount of value you can find as an individual. So whether that's you're holding sightlines and they're pressured to duel you, even if you're dueling their Widow for like 40 seconds during a fight and no one's killing each other, and you're just like standing like you're super scared behind a wall, she's still looking at you. You're still drawing attention. You're still finding value in some way as that hero. It's not always about just clicking heads all the time, unfortunately. So there are ways to find value, even if you're not super performing to what you think is your best. But I understand the situation. It's a match. You want to win more than anything at this moment. It's not a time to improve. It's a time to win. So I understand the thinking here.
I was gonna say something, but I completely forgot it now.
Oh, let me know if it comes back up.
Yeah.
So yeah, the biggest note then is just with this comp, we need to be together. We need to be coordinated, and we need to be on the same. We need to be on the same target at the same time. So obviously, it's a hard target to find. Mercy is one of our better options. Ryan's one of our better options, but that needs to be called earlier in the fight, and it needs to be followed up immediately. That's the only way we win these engages. Otherwise, Pharah gets free reign, Mercy gets a res off. It's not great. But we got a couple of their ults out.
Play it safe and think we can contest it.
We might be able to get another contest off. This is what I meant by not having time for another full fight. So we are still regrouping. We're going to be coming out the spawn door, and we're going to be able to contest, but that's not an ideal fight for us. We're not able to take either high ground, like on either side here, and we're not able to really think about our engage. We kind of just have to press shift and go in with our tanks, which isn't ideal. It's doable, but it's not ideal. And it's most likely going to result in them having map advantage with either their Pharah or their tanks or whatever they have, or their supports. And they're going to just dumpster us when we come out. Now, unless we can turn this out with like huge ults or huge picks, it's not going to work out in their favor. But that being said, it's definitely the right choice to go out and contest, because it wastes their time. It builds our ult economy. It does whatever we need it to for the time. So see how it goes.
I can't contest it.
I can contest this. I can contest this.
Go on.
I'm coming through with Valkyrie. Touch it. Touch it.
Touch.
All right, we get their blade out, which is good. We get their shatter out, which is good too. And their barrage. Okay. I imagine they're going to be swapping the Pharah anyway for this third point, but that's really good to get out.
I'm pretty sure they stuck it.
Yeah, I think they stick on it.
Yeah.
Interesting. The only reason I
To
say
the right.
They ran the Pharaoh on every map, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
okay, so they got like a Pharah player.
Staggered.
Yeah, that guy was like far since season. It was for a long time. That's what I remember.
Okay.
It was generally a problem.
If that's the case, I think you guys could look into specifically hard countering here. With this map, specifically, on this point rather specifically, you can go back to the Kree here. It's really, really good on high ground when pocketed, and they don't have dive. They might be swapping to a Winston instead of Reinhardt, but I doubt it based on their playstyle so far. So if you feel like this fair is an issue, even though we just saw her use Barrage, if we know from past games, for example, that she's going to be an issue, we can look to hard counter her. I would say that Mercy's Zen comp is really, really good at that. I would say pocketing a Kree is really, really good with dealing with Pharah. Even if you don't kill her, pressuring out of from her offensive windows is really, really strong. And wasting her cooldowns and wasting her time is really, really good.
Might have shaft there. Possibly a bomb.
So how do you? So this is actually a sort of interesting third point. This is a notoriously hard point to capture. So let's talk about how you guys like to set up. So we have dive comp. How do you guys usually like to fight this? Where, or rather, what I should say is, where do you guys like to fight?
Get some bridge, if anything.
So like using the high ground and fighting like as the cart's underneath bridge, because what you can do actually do, right, is you can have your tanks really easily contest, and you can take angles on them. You can abuse the mini pack on the right, on the left. So if that's our plan, I want to make sure we pressure the Pharah out of our sightline so she can't just go over and behind us for free, because that's one of our biggest threats. And I want to make sure we're keeping track of where they are rotating around their Reinhardt. If they're just playing on point, sure, we can set up that for free. If they're coming high ground, we need to rotate around that, and we need to adapt to the Ryan shield. So let's see how this plays out.
Okay, everyone group up. And dive the Moira. Go. Go Moira.
I'm with you, Trader.
Where is low? Moira can die.
Genji behind us.
There's one, guys.
Okay, the blade comes through. So let's rewind a quick second. This dive looks really haste to me. So let me explain what I mean by that. We just came out of spawn with our tanks and our supports.
Okay, everyone group up. And dive the Moira. Go.
We called dive the Moira, but our tanks both just used their cooldowns. Who just called dive the Moira? Was it Genji?
Sorry. Yeah, it was Genji.
Okay. So I like that you're calling a target. She's coalescing, which is actually a really good target for Blade because she can't use her shift. It might be hard to kill because she has a emergency bracket and she's coalescing, but as long as you have follow-up, that should be a free kill, right? So when we hear these calls as a team, what I think the ideal way to handle it is to have your other members that are part of the dive echo the call. So what I mean by that is, say Genji's here, he's calling, okay, I want to go on Moira. Then you hear from the Winston, from the Tracer, from the Diva, okay, Moira, Moira. You just repeat back to them what they said, making sure everyone's on the same page. If you don't hear that, it's usually a sign that they're not ready for it. So what we just saw is both tanks use their cooldowns to take high ground, and Winston's looking like he's going to pressure someone over here, which doesn't look to be where the Moira is going to be. So like I said, we need to take time to set up our dives, but we need to make sure that when we are looking for the dives that we have our abilities off cooldown is a big one, but making sure everyone's on the same page and ready to engage at the same time, because it looks like our Genji found a really good target and he's ready to go in, but he's alone and he's not and the team isn't ready for follow-up. So I'd like to hear, it's good that you called it out, it's good you called the target. We need to hear more feedback from the rest of the team, calling back to him, making sure he has support, and making sure we go in together. Because this isn't a solo play, this is a team play. So as you see, because we don't have tank cooldowns, they get kited out and no one else can really help. They end up peeling really hard for her. We get the Moira, but we end up trading. And the Mercy's gonna get that res probably, yeah.
They're on point.
And then they come back with roads. Good sound barrier.
Okay. Sorry, I had to go for like a minute. There's one good thing. There's one thing that I really want to talk about here. If you go back
Okay.
a few seconds.
Sure.
When I think we called to jump Widow, it was just generally like we don't have much focus. I also we called to jump Moira, yet the only people that were there was Mercy.
Okay, so I just kind of went over this a bit, but I guess you're AFK. So
Wait, if you look a bit closer there, then you would realize that I was actually right on the Moira as well. It's just a bit behind since I didn't realize we were jumping on the Moira to begin with. Then I ran after you.
So yeah, the main point I want to bring up here is we're skipping the setup phase for our dive. We're scouting, we're calling a target, and then we're going straight into diving. So I don't know if I've had this speech. This is like my favorite speech to give as a coach. But when setting up a dive, there's 3 steps. There's scouting your target, there's setting up your positioning and your ability to get on that target, and then there's the execution. So we went from scouting the target. Genji, you found the target, which was good. She was actually coalescing, which is a huge target for Blade. And you just went straight in, but we weren't ready as a team. So if you look from Mercy's POV is actually great for this. So you're here, you see the Moira where she is, you up there poking. We literally just see D.Va use her boosters, and Monkey jumps literally before he has a chance to react to your call. So they're going to pressure people either on cart and on high ground so that we have the space to find our dive. But at this point, you're already ready to dive. So it's just a disconnect between you and the other members of our front line. The only person that could maybe get on Moira at this point is Prince, and that's only if he like triple blinks across the map.
Though Winston did call for the jump and then just jumped randomly into the fight without seeing. That's what it mainly was.
I can explain my thought process here.
Okay.
There's a small little window here in the wall between the cart and where we were standing. Yeah, that window. I saw the Moira standing on the cart, so I called out to jump her, and I jumped after her. That's when she used her ult and immediately speeded off into the distance. Then I couldn't get after her. But I was already pretty much midair.
So
That's
yeah,
why-
unless you have your jump off cooldown, it's basically at this point it's impossible for you to get on the Moira because she's already seen you coming. She can already start backing up, and unless you have another jump coming off cooldown, you're not going to be able to catch up to her. The biggest thing I want to hear different about this engage is just our tanks calling back. No movement abilities, can't get on her at whatever it is. Just to, and maybe just a beat between calling the dive as Genji and pulling at your blade, because just waiting for that response from your tanks will make sure that everyone's on the same page. It might seem like it's a very fast-paced engagement. It's very depending on timings and stuff like that, but we have time to wait for each other at least. Otherwise, we're not going to get these clean engages. So yeah, Winston ends up falling on cart, and yeah, by the time he lands, Moira's nowhere near him. And at this point, honestly, I would say Winston should just back up. I think all of us should just back up. Because it's going to be really hard to chase this target. She gets movement speed, and she's going to have a Mercy pocket, so Blade isn't going to one-shot her like it usually will. It'll take at least 3 swipes. Although with the damage boost, maybe you can get 2 off.
It's 3.
Dash. Okay. So it's just a really tough scenario because you're disconnected from the tanks here. And that's just more than anything, I think it's just we need to be more patient and we need to be more communicative about our cooldowns and about our availability to be on a target. Any thoughts on that?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree completely.
So yeah, obviously it's a high pressure situation. They're about to cap the map, and we want to win this fight, obviously, in order to reset and really get a good hold off on this point. So we are, and again, it's game time, so it's natural to be a little bit antsy, I guess, and want to get into these fights and want to play the game, right? But having that setup phase as part of our dive is really, really, really important. And we're doing everything else well. It's just everyone's not on the same page all the time, so these little hiccups happen.
I'm with you, Trader.
Where's Moira can die?
Genji behind us.
There's one, guys. We said we were jumping Moira. No one except for Mercy was there.
They're on point, they're on point, they're on point.
Camping heals on point.
So yeah, and then they counter with the blade.
Resing. I'm dead.
Because in most cases, as Genji, if you're gonna blade a Moira while she's got essence, you're gonna have to waste your entire blade using it.
Yeah.
I'll just call for jump something then.
Yeah, unless you have backup, yeah, she's not going to be blown up.
It was kind of annoying because
Yeah,
since I did.
and then you didn't get her. I was the only one there.
Okay. They're on point, they're on point.
All right, let's see if we can stall this out.
Bombing.
Oh, it's unlucky.
Down. We need to touch.
I got both.
And 70 on Valk.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're just snowballing this with ults, and we can't group up to get on point.
Me and Lucio speeding out. Coming on point. I'm resing.
If this goes off, that's huge. Oh, unlucky.
I didn't get the res.
Yeah, they just had an ult for everyone that came out so far. So yeah, the biggest things, like I said, we need to be quicker about our target calls, and when we are quick about our target calls, we need to make sure we're echoing them or we're calling back to the person who's calming, and just reinforcing that we're together on something. We're playing something as a team. We're not getting split up like this. But let's see how that plays out on offense.
It's not bad.
Do you guys have any questions or notes about this so far?
Know about this, but there's this thing. Actually, nah. I'll talk to you about after this. Let's go with this.
Okay.
stuff.
Bad.
'Cause Joker, Bill Moira, Prince Zarya.
So talk me through this comp. We're running triple tank,
Pharmacy dive.
pharmacy.
I think there's 2 tanks. Probably try running Junkrat.
Now
Are we
Oh, no,
running
triple
Ryan
tank.
Team Zarya?
That's what it was. This was a strat bridge. Generally, I was going to go to the top left, and we go, and if they're on high ground, we take them off there, and then the back path where you can fly over the little wall. Generally, just like spam from there, and then having Zarya and Zed on point, they can just do a lot. But what eventually ended up happening is, I think, I'm mixing this up with a different match, but I think they didn't run Junkrat, so then our Zarya couldn't get that much charge, and then we just didn't do much with Zarya.
Okay. So first of all, let's just talk about what's sort of quote unquote meta on this map. So obviously, dive is still really good. There's a lot of high ground on this first point that we should secure before trying to go deep. So dive is good on this map, and Pharah is good if she can get space and if she has follow up. So she's going to have a lot of space with this comp because 1, she has a Mercy pocket, and 2, she has a Diva to peel for her on high ground if she absolutely needs it. But the biggest thing here I'm seeing is there's not enough follow up for Pharah's damage. So a lot of this initial engage, it sounds like it relies on Pharah displacing the enemy and then us isolating down their tanks with our tanks. Does that sound right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So it's not a bad engage for sure, getting those like high value concussives off. I think it's a little bit unreliable with characters like Diva in the game, and dependent on the enemy position, they can play around it. So I'm curious to see how this will play out. What I'd normally say teams run on this is Winston Diva, if they want to run the Pharah Mercy, that is, they'd run Winston Diva, Pharah Tracer, and then Mercy Lucio or Mercy Zen.
Enjoy their like heavy damage, heavy shields.
Yep. So you guys are gonna play on point, and then me
Oh,
and
sorry, I can
Ryan-
fast forward through this. The other note, actually, I'll make real quick. When we're running Zarya, Zarya's main whole thing in this meta is that she enables Rhine, and Rhine enables her, but only against other Rhine comps. Basically, Zarya doesn't do anything against a dive comp, and she doesn't do anything against an Orisa. So Rhine Zarya really only works against other Rhine comps, so I'm not sure if that's what they're running, but just
Hey,
something
Rhine
to keep in
dive.
mind.
Pretty
Okay,
sure.
so yeah, it's going to be really, really hard for Rhine Zarya to find value because Rhine's not going to be able to swing, and Zarya's not going to get any energy from her Rhine back. If you want to run this without the Zarya, you could try Hog. Hog's a decent option here, just because it's another solo threat, and he can take angles and find space by himself. Ooh. So, small tech here, just for your Mercy player. I don't know if there's Mercy player here right now.
Violet?
Yes.
Okay. Just a small
Mercy
thing.
player here. Yeah.
Don't space cancel in the air so much because you end up slingshotting like this. I think this is an example of like the new space. It was a couple months ago, but the new space being detrimental to a lot of Mercy's movement, where she can get a lot of speed, but it puts her in like really, really weird positions. So I don't know how often you do this, but it looks to me like you're space canceling here. So try as much as you can to just shift cancel, especially when you're pocketing a Pharah, just because you can control your movement better and it puts you in less vulnerable locations. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Small note, but yeah.
Okay, as soon as I did that, I kind of knew. Oh
Yeah.
shit.
It happens like on the ground too. Like
Overextend.
I remember when it first came out, like I was like catapulting in front of Rhine shields all the time. It was so weird.
They're dropping. Soldier's still on the high ground. I need shield.
Yeah, I do it too much when I play Mercy too.
I don't play Mercy, so it doesn't matter.
All right, so let's see their comp.
Does-
They have a Rhine comp, but the Rhine kind of has to play on his own against this, or he's used to solo pocket the soldier while Pharah goes aggressive. So their comp again is a little weird. They're playing around their Pharah, obviously. They have a Pharah one trick, it seems. So again, if this is a game scenario, if I was you guys, I would be looking at every way possible to abuse their Pharah player, because we know it's something that's an issue, and we know it's something that they're going to be running almost all the time, probably. So Pharah of our own is one way to deal with her. It takes her attention away, and there's the obvious kill potential by dueling her. The other thing I would say is we should try to pressure their soldier so our Pharah has space here. That's going to be either with so right now only our D.Va can really do it, but our D.Va can solo pressure a soldier fine as long as he's on his own trying to find angles. So for example, if soldier's on the high ground here alone, I want to see D.Va on him, and I want to see our tanks battling it on the ground, because Rein Zarya beats Rein D.Va in like a 2v2 as long as we can force that 2v2 by causing the Pharah to duel and by forcing the soldier out of position or to look at our D.Va at the very least. So I think that's sort of our win condition here, is taking the ground war as like Rein Zarya Moira versus Rein D.Va Moira, and that should work out favorably for us. And winning or stalling out the enemy DPS with our available heroes.
Reinhold, one soldier.
Like this D.Va's insanely in the front.
We need a hit scan.
Yeah, the fire is what's wrecking us every time.
This is another comp where I think Widow. Okay.
No, I'm going Widow, it's fine.
Again, this comp has the vulnerability of not having a lot of follow-up. So, for example, if Widow gets a pick, there's nothing we can really do to stop Mercy from rezzing, as long as the pick's like far away or like on their side of the map at the very least, you know? So, usually, again, I'll say this is like a quote-unquote meta thing. When you have these isolated threats of Pharah or of Widow with a pocket, or even like a Kree that's pocketed with a Mercy, like these huge threats that have a lot of kill potential, you want something else to be able to either find focus from them or find follow-up damage. So usually what teams will run are a Tracer, obviously a lot of annoying pressure there from Tracer just on her own, or a Genji to have those follow-up dashes and just be able to go in on vulnerable targets by himself. Does that make sense? If we are set on running this this ground comp, I think we could look at doing just a regular hit scan, like a Kree or a soldier pocketed. It doesn't necessarily need to be a Widow, and that gives us the added ground pressure too.
Because
But
right
ahead.
now we're in the process of like writing up comps and strats for each map, but we
For sure.
we haven't touched Dorado yet because we've gone through. Yeah, we've generally just gone to like I think 4 maps out of the 8 on the board.
Okay.
Right above.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. It takes time to learn new maps and to figure out what works for you guys, and not only like coming up with a strat, but
I'm
figuring out what it works against and what it doesn't work against, and tweaking and adjusting.
Yep.
So yeah, it
Yeah,
takes a
yeah.
lot of time.
And I've just been going through like contenders matches
Right.
because that's being run on current patch.
One of our only mobile heroes.
So
Yeah, I think contenders are a good model to look at for open division games because it's basically the same patch.
and League uses the old patch.
I have Valk.
I think they're on
We can push him with Cola.
what actual patch are we on right now? Are we on 1.21 still?
Let me check. I have my game up.
The Reaper.
1.22.01.
Right. So
Reaper buffs out here, but I don't think League does with that.
yeah, okay. So yeah, contenders is the same patch.
Contenders do the same patch, but because League's run on separate servers, they can do the
Yeah.
older one.
Contenders actually does run its own
Haven't they?
servers. They're running on 1.21, which is essentially the same as 1.22 right now. They literally just fixed like some retribution things, so it's the same patch effectively.
Haven't they?
But yeah,
Yeah,
I always thought it was just the like region servers. For the Asian ones, I'd use Asian servers, but no. Alright.
Soldier above still.
Shattering.
Ryan's shot. Ryan.
good Valkyrie action.
Die. Right.
Fire directly above.
Low.
But she's one.
Diva. Diva works standard.
Diva 1. She's bombing.
No.
I'm healing you.
So this is a really extended engage, and we end up losing a couple members in this cave here. I'm just gonna rewind and rewatch this.
Ryan,
So, why can't I go back?
Ryan's one.
It's actually not letting me rewind. This is weird. Okay, we can talk about it from here. So, our ground war. We have Ryan, Zarya, Diva as our tanks, correct? Yes. So, we should almost always win this ground war as long as we don't have a lot of pressure from their Pharah. So, our win condition right now is stuff the Pharah, pressure the tanks. And Widow can stuff the Pharah on her own, so that literally takes care of 2 out of the 4 members if Mercy's on the Pharah. So even if they're not dead, they're going to be quote unquote out of the fight or pressured to a location where they're not a threat during the fight. So with that said, we need to be really playing around their Reinhardt. I'm not sure exactly what happened. It's hard to tell from this angle, but we got disconnected from our Rhine, and their Rhine just walked up on us and found a lot of value. He doesn't actually kill anyone here, right? But when we get disconnected, it's better for them because they have more sort of like they have a better team fight, quote unquote, but we have a better front line. So if we can abuse frontline versus frontline, we can take an organized team fight that wins for us. But if we get split up and they get this sort of like chaos going, that's when they're going to win, right? That's where they're going to get fair damage off. That's where their soldier's going to pop off because there's no pressure on them. That's where their team's actually going to be enabled to do damage. So we need to be really careful about how we're playing our tanks, and we need to make sure we have all this set conditions in order to move forward before we move forward.
Ryan's one. Die. Ryan.
We do get a charge on the mortar.
Fire directly above.
Okay, our Ryan doesn't die here. I thought he died here for some reason.
She's one. She's one. I died really early though.
Okay.
I got. Oh yeah, Ryan does die.
Okay.
He's already dead.
Diva one.
Copied.
No, Ryan's right here. It's a Zarya that went down.
If you look in kill feed, it said things.
Enemy Ryan, not our Ryan.
It said Lumion though. Weird. Could have sworn. Okay. Let's just wear.
But yeah, so the biggest thing here is we need to have our tanks in a clump, and we're kind of getting to this point where we're one in front of the other, shifting back and forth, and we're taking too much damage from either Pharah or Soldier. I can't really tell at this point. Soldier gets the kill on our Zarya, which is unfortunate.
It's
And-
far. It's their fire, and then I think that Eve just follows up on anything.
Right. So when Pharah is like right here, and our Widow is behind us, she was taking shots from Red Roof. We need to play a little bit slower and wait for a Widow to reposition to pressure the Pharah again, or we just need to acknowledge where the Pharah is and play more in her LOS. Whether that means under the bridge, whether that means rotating, get in faster locations. But it's really about controlling their angles, their DPS angles with our Widow, and understanding where our threats are as tanks. Does that make sense?
Diva
So yeah,
one.
this ends up just a chaotic
Bombing.
fight, and the bomb comes out,
I'm healing you.
and there's just too much damage to deal with at this point.
Nice.
Moira
We do get a
behind
late
us.
kill on the Pharah, which is good. They're not going to be able to res that.
It's free.
Control.
Okay, I want to swap now. Going to Junkrat just because then we
Got
can.
another coalescence.
Okay. I have an idea.
Look at these graphs.
Prince idea.
Let's go underneath. Go have the flank around to the soldier.
Go down on
All right, I don't like this for one reason. Their Pharah is coming from spawn right now,
Yeah.
and we are giving her all the time in the world to get back.
You can also
So-
print this.
The biggest thing, like I'm not saying it's a bad play. I'm just saying in this very situation, when we have a numbers advantage, we know Pharah didn't get res. She's coming from spawn. We need to move fast, and Pharah being the huge threat that she is in this match, we need to move faster, and we need to capitalize on our numbers advantage. So whether that means a faster reset when we're spawning, or a faster call out about where we want to take the fight, as long as we understand like we have an advantage, we need to abuse it. That's like the clearest window I can think of. So I'd like to hear a quicker call about this rotation if you really want to make it. Like as soon as like we can go 20 seconds back. Like as soon as this fight's being
It's
lost,
free.
just like right now, we should be calling, okay, group reset. We're gonna go underneath, and everyone and these 3 alive members can go there right away, and everyone who's spawning can go there right away, and maybe we can still make it on time for the pick to still matter.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily looking at the kill feed either. I just assumed that the Mercy had res, and that they would probably just res the Pharah anyway. So I didn't realize that that can be a thing.
Right, for sure.
I wasn't keeping track of cooldowns. I don't think anybody really called that Mercy rest or anything. So I was just thinking, just going underneath, going around would probably be like a lot better to contesting the high ground than it would be like because we just kept going through the middle and we kept getting like stomped. And it felt like we were going through like a brick wall, so I thought maybe changing things up and going down a different route would be better.
Yeah, for sure. Taking this rotation, like those stairs around the well there, it creates a lot of space for Widow, because then we have control of this bridge. We have control of these angles for Widow, whether it's here or on bridge itself. So that's really, really good for our fight. And it forces either Pharah to go above and into us, or really, really far back, or like around apartments on either side. And it's awkward to play, basically. So I like the rotation. I just think make sure we're calling if this is a moment that happens to us where we get this pick and we notice that they're not able to be 6 members and we are, someone on our team should be calling that out. Someone on our team should realize we have an advantage. We have numbers. We should be doing a faster engage. We should be looking for this. So whether that means calling out your kills as Widow, whether that means one of the supports hitting tab or one of the tanks hitting tab during the fight and seeing, oh, look, they're down one and she's not getting res. I just saw her spawn. Whatever that is, just having a little more communication about the state of the fight. A small note too, like I think we could have called to reset a bit quicker, but no one extra dies, so it doesn't really matter.
It's free.
But yeah, let's see how this rotation works out.
Look at these graphs.
Go down onto the high ground behind them, yeah.
There you go.
All right, so we got some big ults coming up.
Okay, wait for Lumi so he can shield us from the soldiers' damage.
I'm here.
He's not there. Hey, D.Va.
No boosters. Good one.
Mercy dead.
Nice.
That was huge.
Go play.
Main tank's on point. We're on point.
That opens up the Pharah first.
They're attack physiring. I need shield. I'm dead.
So we get split up because
Idiot.
we don't know we don't know where to go after the fact. So we get a huge pick on Mercy, and this instantly turns into a winnable fight again. Even if their Pharah comes back, I didn't see her in that fight, but she could be back already. So Lumi decides we want to be on cart, so we want to get as much push pressure as possible. And the rest of the team decides they want to rotate into them because they want to go aggressive off the Mercy pick, or they see someone they want to be aggressive on. But it looks like our D.Va gets low and then decides to fly back to cart. So the main concern here is there's no communication about these rotations at all. So when we are playing Overwatch and we're going for team rotations, we need to keep in mind who's on our team and what kind of movement they have available to them. So first note, we don't have a Lucio, so we're going to be slower. So making these rotations through the enemy team in front of them like this is probably not the best idea, especially since our Rein's not currently with us. Splitting off as a Reinhardt in general, I wouldn't say is the best call. I think usually you want to always have your team in mind and how much value you can get out of your shield as possible. So whether that means staying up here until everyone's ready to rotate. Again, no one called what they wanted to do, so it's hard to you can't predict what people want to do. It needs to be communicated until you get to a point where it's like you can read each other's thoughts, but that takes a bit of time playing together. So the biggest thing I want to hear here is as soon as we get this pick, someone's calling, okay, engage into them, or okay, rotate back to cart. One of these two things needs to happen. Not both, is what I'm trying to say. So different people are trying to do different things. The healers end up having to split their focus between two things, and our D.Va ends up split anyway, so it's like there's nothing they can do for her, and it just kind of falls apart from there.
On point. We're on point.
That opens up the Pharah first.
They're attack physiring. I need shield. I'm dead.
Sorry.
So yeah, I guess the biggest thing here is Rein, don't leave your team. Remember what your purpose is as the main tank here. You're here to make space for your team. If they want to move, that's when you move. If you want to move, you need to tell them that you want to move so they'll move with you. For I'm not sure what rotation Junkrat made. Did you just walk through bridge and fall down? I think. I'm not
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you're fine to look for space and look for spam, as long as you're not getting too aggressive. I think that's fine. I have a note for the diva here. Is just if you are getting low like this, instead of flying to cart, I'd like to see you fly back to your healers and just take LOS here, and then maybe either you can decide from there to move forward or to fall back to cart, whichever it is. So it just became a really awkward position for our supports to be in. Obviously, we get Tac Visor for free, and this look like a losing push now.
I Valk. 30 seconds left. We're down 2. We have Grav and it's up.
Ryan behind. Ryan low.
I'm waiting.
All right, we got Grav Shatter still.
We have Grab Valkyrie and a Shadow.
Careful, Prince. Careful.
I don't think we make it back to cart though, because the timers.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh yikes.
Yeah, we need to start moving towards point now.
Ryan's
Grav when you want. Grav when you want.
I'm on point. I'm on point.
Okay, we can test, but we're in a rough spot. We get the Rhine kill.
Get on point. Soldier
Mercy's behind
on top.
We need to Grav. We need to Grav anything. We need to Grav anything.
Okay.
pharmacy.
Nice, nice, nice.
Ryan is low, Ryan is low.
I'm keeping
Nice,
our
nice,
Rhine
nice.
up. Keeping our Rhine up.
Soldier
Okay, this is looking good.
One point.
Moira.
That was super chaotic. I think that was more than anything a misplay from the enemy team. They got, first of all, they shattered to try and spawn camp you, and the Rhine fed, which caused their Mercy to go out of position, which caused their Pharah to panic barrage, and it kind of just domino affected from there. So
It's always the last second when the teams get their shit together, huh?
yeah, or lose their shit in terms of the enemy team here.
Also plus,
Careful, Prince,
except
careful.
for
Then
Diva,
I-
it's gonna get there quickly.
They're giving it. They're giving
Martin.
it. They're giving it.
God damn.
Sorry,
it,
can you repeat
Prince.
that?
Wait, what? No, sorry, I was thinking of something. No, never mind.
Look what Prince
Okay.
does.
Something bad.
Oh no.
Yeah, I die.
You can't commit to fighting.
Well, we get the cap,
Moira.
and this is actually really good for us because these guys are going to be staggered.
Moira.
I just honestly thought you were like with me, so I thought I could just aggress more on the soldier.
That's a big stagger.
Because you had your beam
Yeah,
tethered
that's
towards
fair.
me, so I was like,
That's
okay,
fair.
so I got Mercy here, so that means this soldier can die.
A lot of ults up soon too.
All right, so we're still on triple tank against the Pharah, so we are weak to high ground here. We swapped the junk to a soldier to try and have more range and to pressure the Pharah. The biggest thing we need to watch out for here is an uncontested soldier on high ground. Pharah is going to be a known threat, but Soldier Diva should be able to handle her. But what I'm going to be looking at you for here is anytime that the tanks drop down and the soldier stays up top, I want to see Diva going up to pursue the soldier. Because Ryan Zarya plus Moira should be enough to bully their tanks off. And then Pocketed Soldier should be enough to survive Pharah. It's really the soldier's damage that we're worried about turning this fight.
Then Moira will be with them now.
I Valk. We can't
We're
take
playing
high
slow,
ground, so we
waiting
have
for them to
just,
drop.
Uh,
So yeah, they're just letting us push. They're trying to find alts, I guess.
Tac visor.
Okay,
I'm
Tac
gonna just-
Visor.
I'm high. Oh, Tac visor behind.
So we get in a position. So soldiers just building ult right now. That's all they're doing. They're waiting for Tac Visor, and then they're gonna pocket a soldier ult.
Can't take high
So-
ground, so we have to just.
If we're in a position where they're on high ground like this, I don't think we need to be positioned like this on cart. I think we can leave Ryan or Diva or Zarya solo on cart and have everyone else either hide in church or look to rotate quickly into bank or something to get out of LOS because we don't need 6 members on cart and we don't need to be taking as much damage as we're taking right now. The biggest note, I guess, here is just knowing when we're losing a poke war and doing everything we can to get out of it. So like if both teams are poking each other and you're getting like even trades, it's fine. If one team is like completely abusing you from the high ground here, that's when we want to be looking to get out of it as quickly as possible. So yeah, good options, just hiding underneath church. If they drop down, we can kite either into church and force them into a choke point and then our tanks just pincer them. Again, we should win this ground war with Ryan Zarya Diva compared to their comp. We should always win the ground war. It's always the matter of worrying about the soldiers' damage and the Pharaoh's damage. And as long as we have answers for that, we should be okay.
Just stay alive on cart, basically.
So attack phasing. I'm
Dead.
I'm high. Attack phaser behind. I won't use anything.
Yep, don't commit anything. Just
No, I'm getting
Really
Yeah, because you're
damage
dead, dummy.
Listen here.
So-
Milky, if you're damage boosted, then
Yeah,
you
I'm in
can
a really
just
bad position.
fly up and burst the far down. It should be quite easy.
Yeah. We
Okay, I'm at 60 though for grab.
let's get
fire above,
Okay.
fire above, fire above.
Yeah, I'm counter.
fire above.
Where's
Like
it?
directly above.
So yeah, we don't have a lot of options for dislodging them. It's really just a matter of
Right,
uh,
guys,
getting the cart to a point where they have to contest.
don't go
So
there,
that's
don't
sort of our win condition now. Unless we
Yeah,
want to
we've
make
got
some
fire
crazy
above.
rotation like we're doing.
Yeah, we're going to take the top right, and here was a big mistake. We just didn't go through. Rich, our Mercy went in. She's developed and she stayed in the building. If we would have went by really quickly, we could have gone past them. But we ended up staying there for too long. I think I
Okay,
stayed.
let's see it.
One
See how
healer,
this
one healer
works.
still
DVD,
behind.
DVD. I'm in.
Somebody gets angry here.
Find the letter.
Nice, nice, nice.
Pretty sure it's me because I got
Come through,
salty
come
too.
through, come through,
Damn
Val,
match.
come through, come through, come through, come through.
So
Wait,
I'm
what?
not sure what our win condition is for this fight.
Just getting them off the high ground. And I
So,
can fight from there.
The problem I'm seeing is we're putting ourselves in a really vulnerable location. So this bridge is, I would say, not an ideal fight zone for us. If we can speed across and get to this open area, and we can have our tanks out there while our soldier Mercy are behind in here safe, I think that's fine. I think having them coalesce us and having their rotation turn quickly towards us is where we rethink this plan of attack. So I like the rotation. I like that we're trying to find creative ways to dislodge them from where they are. I think we need to react to what they're doing though more than anything. So the fact that as soon as we got through this doorway, they were looking at us and they were ready. Sorry, I went too far back.
DVD, DVD. I'm in.
So yeah, before Ryan even charges, the coalescence comes out. So they know exactly where we are. They know what we're trying to do. And at this point, like we get the coalescence out. That's a free alt. If we just turn around and go back the other way, they don't have coalescence for the next fight, right? So it's a small advantage, but we take what we can get. The only time I could see this working is if we catch them off guard. And what I mean by that is by either if
Through,
if
Val,
I
come
just
through,
go
come
forward,
through, come through.
if their tanks are like still on the edge of this platform and their soldiers like maybe still back here or something, they're not ready to answer this rotation. That's when we can try and go through and look to force them off, split them up, find targets, clean them up, all that good stuff. But just the fact that they were so ready to answer this rotation it doesn't even matter that we got split up on the call because it would have been shut down either way. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think what and also like not only just the coalescence, but as soon as we lose Ryan, we need to rethink this push too. So it is a questionable decision to go in as Mercy, but again, I don't think it would have changed much if even at this point because they would have they'd be looking to go into us. We have no shield, and we're in a really tight corridor. If we manage to kite them out enough and they force themselves into this bend, maybe we can win something. But it's a really awkward fight right now.
Come through, come through.
Go through, go through.
Diva, Diva.
Way too slow.
Oh, come on. Yeah, she's right outside the door.
Yes, sir. Reach.
We do get barrage and coalescence out, so that's good for us. We used bomb and valve.
Seconds, 20.
We've almost got Grav on top of those rooms.
It might be up to Ryan or David to touch here.
Just go to
So
cart
this
and
might be an
force them
awkward
to go
fight.
down on us, and then
We
fight
could
them
just
to
again
close, 'cause
push
that's our
aim to push the
strongest-
cart as much as we can,
Staying on cart.
as long as we can control soldier
dead to
damage.
fire
But
away.
yeah, so coming through
That's-
Chopsis
that's our
against Farah, either we need to be going slower. We still have 13 seconds. We don't need to be on the cart right this second. And we just need to respect our team's ability to get places. So it's not just Mercy here. There's still like 3 people behind you, I think. So even if Mercy didn't die here, we would have taken huge damage from either our backline or our supports, our Mercy in general. and it forces us to slow our engage even more. Whereas if we just take our time, we don't even need to go through this tight corridor. We can go through main, take better line of sight, use our shield slowly, use our matrix, and yeah, just take our time. We have a very set plan. We want to contest cart and we want to force them off high ground, right? So anything we can do to make that happen, we need to do it step by step. We need to make sure we're patient with our movement, and we need to make sure we actually get to where we're going.
That's our
But yeah,
strongest.
this is just unfortunate.
I'm dead to fire right above. Above, left side, left side, left side. There's Hack
Really need names for these places.
Switching to Lucio to get back.
Just saying our main tank had to leave.
Okay.
So now it's down to me, Prince, and Violet,
Being Genji.
and Joe.
Prince, good tracer.
Okay, we're winding down anyway. It looks like. Yeah.
I'm dead.
We end
Fine.
up just thing on trickling on and dying.
Yeah. So a lot of this came down to, I think, you guys not having a lot of practice on the map. I think
We only
you
ran
need to
this
rethink your. I think you need to rethink your comps. I think just relying on dive, for the most part, on Dorado is a safe bet. You can look at first point strategies. You can look at comp switches into second that like teams are doing in contenders and stuff. But a lot of what's being run right now is still dive, and there's a lot of Widow, there's a lot of Pharah, but it's at its core, it's a dive. So, again, when learning these new maps, it all comes down to finding your win condition. And in this case, our win condition was just getting them off of this high ground, right? So we don't need to play for poke and to build ults. We don't need to do that. We just need to play to force a reaction out of them, whether that means playing in here and waiting for their Pharah to go aggressive or them to drop, whether that means sending one person on cart while the rest of us do a rotation. Whatever it is to cause them to react is how we win this. It's not by being actively aggressive. It's by being reactionary with our comp.
Also,
But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, we didn't run Dorado that much. I think we ran it twice in the week that we did a lot of practice. We ran Junkertown a lot more because we were really not that good on Junkertown.
Do you feel like you improved on Junker at least?
Yeah, we slightly. We were gonna get you to review that, but everyone else wanted to watch the Open Division thing, and I'll get your opinion on that.
Yeah, if you have the time, we could possibly look at it, because we do find that map a little bit awkward for us.
Yeah.
I don't have time this afternoon, but if you send me the VOD, I could just look over and send you some notes.
Oh, that's fine.
Generally the problem with that is that we didn't have a dedicated Widow player and we ended up having to run just people on different roles. Like I had to run Mercy once, which was just bad calls from me.
Yeah,
But
ideally,
now
you
that
don't
I'm-
have to do that.
Yeah, now that I'm learning Widow and getting pretty good as her, I should be fine. Like in the scrims we did today, I was doing really well on Widow. And there was
For
like
sure.
no struggle.
Honestly, the biggest thing about Widow is confidence, like I said. So getting scrim time in and getting practice time in as Widow will definitely help your game. I haven't seen your personal mechanics, so I don't know if I can give you any tips in that regard, but I'm sure putting enough time in will get you there.
I got a friend who was in contenders like 2016. He was coaching me a bit. He just generally taught because my tracking's pretty bad on Widow. He generally just told me to work on flicks then because that can get me far enough, especially for open division.
Yeah, as long as you know what you're trying to do, it's usually pretty
Yeah.
straightforward to improve. It's literally just putting the time in.
Uh-huh.
Did you guys have any other notes about this VOD or anything?
No, not really.
So yeah, just sort of like a wrap up thing. The biggest note I have about any of this is like, regardless of the comps, regardless of the map, the counterplays or whatever, the biggest shortcoming I'm seeing is just communication and making sure everyone's on the same page. This is most prevalent in dive comp because everyone needs to be either focused on the same thing or make sure we're all doing the same type of dive at the very least. So I didn't see that a whole lot in this VOD. But it also applies to triple tank comps. It applies to what rotation we're making. It applies to where we are in the fight. It applies to who needs peeling when. It applies to every aspect of Overwatch where communication and making sure everyone is playing the same game, basically.
There was a tiny problem. We were meant to do an hour of practice, like just together, but Prince kind of fell asleep
Yeah.
because
Nice.
it's like 5 or 6 a.m. for him, and he
Yeah,
slept
it's
through the
like
first
anyway.
entire first match. Yeah, so he slept through the entire first match, so he didn't get that much practice in. So
That's
like,
unlucky.
because like especially here, that's why I swapped him off with McCree. Because generally I was thinking, like, because he woke up recently and he probably only did Tracer practice. I doubt he did any McCree drills because he needed just to get the basics down on Tracer. That's why I swapped him off because I was thinking they could do better on Tracer. That was like for the last round though. Anyway, yeah,
Sure.
that's it.
And yeah, another note too is like I wouldn't think too hardly on yourselves for this map. Again, this is a game. This is a performance game. It's not about what you guys did to try and improve yourselves. It's about pure performance in this zone. And distinguishing that difference between like your scrim time and your performance time is really, really important. So don't get too down on yourselves for this. It is what it is. It's a product of your practice. It's a product of you guys' teamwork. So all you can do now is work harder in your scrims, analyze your problems, and just work on them. It's not about how hard we're failing or how hard we're getting stomped on in these open games. It's about what we do to improve for the next one, and it's about minimizing our margin of error. So yeah, these games they looked really close. I think the timer doesn't really reflect how close this game was. It was definitely very winnable for you guys. Just a few things to clean up, maybe a few strategy sessions to figure out the maps, but that's it.
Yep. Anyway, I gotta go. See you guys.
Yep, I'm gonna head out too.
All right.
Thanks guys for having me in.
Yeah.
And yeah, if
Thanks.
you want to send me like that Junker VOD or whatever, I can write something down for you at the least.
Yeah, I mean we did one today, which was a little bit more improved. We decided to try out a new we just decided to put like Violet on the shot calling role and just share it with the main tank just for like target calls and stuff like that. So we just kind of trimmed it down to only 2 people instead of like the last time we had 3 people, which made it a little bit more confusing. But I think results showed that the results were really positive from just doing that too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, just being honest about like what's working and what's not is really, really key for improving. So that's good. You guys are doing that. All right. Well, again, thanks, and I'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, thank you.
See ya.
Peace.
I'll have TKD, dude.